Good afternoon, guys. Yes, as I promised, I have another big question, or big question to me at least, uh, about identity. And this is something that I have been noticing for quite some time. Uh, that there is this particular figuration that is coming up pretty much globally. I see that trend coming quite. It's very uniform, and I do see it a lot on younger artists like millennials, especially uh, yeah the younger millennials. No, millennials in general, I think, which is the sense of identity, and that how combines to age regression. And what I find interesting is not only like the artists are expressing these ideas, but also the market is consuming these ideas, which I find even far more interesting. I find interesting on on two counts. The amount of works that are being produced addressing this particular configuration, and the speed of that hype. This is something that a discussion that I had yesterday and last Wednesday with this collectors forum that I participate in, and we were discussing like how quickly hype goes through. It's not, we were not necessarily criticizing hype in itself, but it was like the speed that is a split second these days. And I think I attribute that to the internet, especially Instagram or those kind of, or TikTok or so on one of those platforms where you hit, like, you can see a trend that is happening in let's say in Santiago de Chile. It's immediately within seconds is picked up in Beijing or so, and I think that experiment worked with the fashion. Yesterday I was discussing with a fashion consultant, and we were discussing this, like for example, companies like Zara, the relevance and the relativity of time changed because they start seeing trends pretty much globally, and then they instead of doing the traditional four-season collection, now they switch to like a 1 month or so. And this actually notes to my previous video on relativity, that the speed of information is really changing the perception of time. And this is something that is not new. It also happened in the 1900s when the cities, when modernism was at its peak. The cities were at a way faster pace than the rural areas, and that changed, and that created a different dynamics in the perception of time. And relative to production, like how much do you need to produce relative to your own means of production. I mean, production in the rural areas it was much lower than production in a factory, and much quicker. Consumption is much quicker. Even yesterday we were discussing with some friends about food and all these alternative foods that are coming, right? Like, but it's not necessarily because it's holistic or anything. It's because there's so much demand that you need to find alternatives that produce food quicker, faster, more durable, and so on. Is that relativity is changing, and I do see that the impact that has on identity. I see that quite obvious. I do believe that maybe it was similar to what happened in the early 1900s with the birth of psychoanalysis. That people are losing their sense because of the sense of speed and consumption, how information is flowing. People are losing that sense of who they are, and you can see a lot of works that I do see coming, especially or auction, or big or smaller auction houses, are works that, for example, they have where you see the face is blurred or twisted, or there's a detachment and extraction of being into replace into something else. Last Wednesday we were discussing about a trend that we're seeing evolving socially, which is the rise of your digital self. So you have two people, like yourself and your digital self. And COVID, for example, yesterday also the discussion that we had exemplified that point, that people actually, when they were confronted to stay alone, a lot of people actually were afraid to be with their own thoughts, because they don't know that they're creating a conflict. They don't even know who they are in reality. And I know these questions about existentialism are always there, but I think it has been amplified when your interaction and your exchange of information is so quick to the internet. You're losing that sense of who they are, and I do see, and that is actually what I attribute to the rise of this infantile, what I call age regressed art, or these cartoonish works and childish works, and what attracts me on that one is not only like the production but also the consumption. There's a big market that has incredible demand for these works, and I wonder why. It's a sense of coping. It's a sense of I mean, when I study post-war Japanese and the rise, of, for example, of Godzilla and so on, and they're doing these cartoonish figures in Japan, the whole kawaii culture, there was a necessity to cope, right? Japan post-war came through a significant social stress, including of identity, because they didn't know who they are, and then you got the foreign forces coming into Japan and so on, and creating such an imbalance that they had to regress to a certain level where collectively they kind of like match that age, and it was pretty infantile. I mean, imagine the society at large, right? And on average, not as an individual level, but at large. And when you start seeing, and I see the same thing happening right now with all this regression, this art that is quite uniform. I don't know if I attribute that to the internet, to the speed of information, to the rise of the digital self. That is a question that I have. Why you guys think why this is happening? It's happening. You guys, anybody that is, you don't even need to be involved in the art world to realize that there's a lot of hype and exposure to works that look very childish, including on TV. The millennials are rather infantile. There's a generation, and I'm not judging. I'm just comparing it to a previous generation. For example, we were discussing that my generation. I'm a Gen Xer, born in '75, and for me, like the concept of social skill was indifferent because I had to confront the society when I was little. I had to go and ask my mother's friend when I wanted to play out. I'm raised to have social frictions since a very young age. This millennial generation, especially the Gen Zers, know everything they interact on the internet, which is kind of like is always kind of like a happy place because everybody's like, nobody's really willing to at least among your friends. I mean, when you go to outside the anonymous internet, people trash you for no reason. But when you go to your followers, kind of a group, everybody's posting you beautiful things. You look great. You look that, even if it's not true, it's because people want to be nice. And when you grow up with that with that interaction, and then suddenly you're confronted to the real world, which is pretty uneven and pretty unfair, because it's true, the world doesn't owe anything to anybody. They do clash, and I wonder if that has to do with the works that we see right now, these age regress works. And I can compare that with the work by Mac that I have here. I acquired for that reason. I think it was. I mean, I think I explained this work quite considerably. That is a clash of your ideal world in virtual reality. Is exactly this point. And when she takes it out, nothing matches, nothing makes sense. Everything is mismatched. Everything is absolutely a total mess, which is that social dilemma. But I see it more and more and more and more and more, and not only on expression, but also on commercialization. And it worries me a little bit. I have to say that it worries me for one reason. And yesterday I was, there's something a funny conclusion that I came up the other day, which is I call it the Jackie Chan syndrome, which is the problem with Jackie Chan. He built a character that was kind of like a stunt man doing the karate thing and so on, which was fine. And it was appealing primarily to younger generation, right? But as his followers start aging, he didn't, and that started creating a mismatch. And eventually, when he realized that his followers were no longer had an appeal with his followers because they mature naturally, that created a conflict, and totally he decided just to vanish. And I do see, for example, Cause. It's a similar situation. Cause was an artist once, and he was producing fantastic works that had an appeal to a generation, but he stuck there. He decided to exploit that idea, and he got stuck. And eventually, his followers matured and the change taste. Sorry, and the taste changed. And of course now he is not necessarily regarded at the pinnacle that he was once. And I that is actually my biggest fear for these artists that are producing this childish, cartoonish work. I do understand the concept of your struggle, but my only advice, and again, at least I see it from a market perspective, that audience that is buying these artworks is going to change, is going to mature. And just put it this way, I don't necessarily think that someone that is 70, when they reach at 60, 70 years old, will become like affluent, they're going to have the same appreciation or attachment to a work that looks extremely cartoonish. Uh, just think about it. I think it's best to acknowledge stuff from somewhere, but keep exploring. This is the reason I constantly insist that I like artists that are exploratory, not exploit, not do not exploit art, because they need to mature. I mean, they need to mature with your audience. If you really want to be sustainable, you need to keep moving and keep moving and keep aging. You look at the greatest actresses, for example, that there were once like Diane Keaton or Meryl Streep or Tilda Swinton or so on. The artists that they eventually got into the industry because they were pretty, or even Jodie Foster. They were they had looks and everything. They were appealing to the camera, but they decided to outbrain this that industry, and they decided to age with the audience. And even until today, they keep booked. And for example, Meryl Streep, she's still getting nominated and nominated. She doesn't get nominated because she's just Meryl Streep. No, because she's good. Her performances are really good. And now she's playing character roles because she's aging through. She's maturing through. And her performances are quite different from the early ones because she has matured. So that is my take. It worries me a little bit. I think, especially on the exploitation side, I'm all in for artists exploring that particular trend, but don't get stuck there. Because you make $3, that doesn't mean that is your golden. I mean, it could be, and you can find a way to support you financially, but don't get greedy on that particular expression, because that audience is going to age, and eventually you don't want to end like Jackie Chan. So yeah, this is it. Again, I mean, this might sound like a little bit on the judging side. It's because I'm getting concerned. I'm very concerned the amount of work that I see that is, I don't know if it's the market just dumping this thing, these expressions, which certainly that would be a red flag right away. But I understand the stresses, I understand everything, but life is tough. And especially I ask all the younger millennial artists to embrace that uncertainty, embrace that existentialism, and keep moving, and age and mature, and have the dialogue with the fan base that you have achieved, and continue. Don't get stuck. Don't be like Cause or Jeff Koons that they sold out. They found one idea and they just got stuck there, and now people are disregarding them. Not because people want to be against them. Really, people don't really care. It's because just the audience just matured, and they don't, and they appreciate other things in a greater scale than what they appraise Cause. So they're not doing anything like meaningfully to hurt these artists. It's just that the audience matured. So I invite everybody to think about that. And again, I'm really happy if you guys give me your thoughts, because this is something that is bugging me. It is in my head, and I've been looking at a lot of artists that are addressing that concept of identity. So I'm more than happy to hear your thoughts. And again, I mean, I really like the participation in these channels. Recently, we had the talk. We did this informal walk at Hong Kong Mall, which was a total success. It was a small group, but we were about 6 of us, and but we had incredibly that collective intelligence that we yield out of, especially when we're discussing the Picabia. That was just beautiful. This is actually what these talks are meant to be, like art lovers just sitting there at an open forum without questioning and just discussing every single aspect. We broke down that piece in so many pieces: the color of the scarf, the expression of the bull, the hands, everything. And I loved it. And I think after we went with drinks with with friends, and it was fantastic. And it was a very big group. We have art professionals, we had artists, we have young collectors, we had everybody there in that small group, and it was fantastic. I loved it. So actually, I'm thinking about doing another one because I like good ideas, and good ideas are worth exploring. So that one was a good idea. Why? Because the exchange of information was beautiful. So I'm planning to do a second one. I'm trying to find a good venue or a good. I will do a little bit of research. I'm thinking of, for example, doing on the south side of this in Huanchucan. Probably I will do something there because I think we can visit many galleries, so we don't necessarily get stuck with one expression. We can visit many and compare. And I have this forum, and also there's like a nice bar that we can have a drink afterwards. Because for me, it's all about socializing and establishing good information flow. So yeah, do let me know. Feel free to send me a message privately, or we can meet up for a coffee. Anything. I'm some of you guys, you know that I'm doing a career transition at the moment. My days in banking are numbered. And now I'm going to dedicate full time to the collection and to the art industry. I'm going to have skin in the game now. I'm going to be part of this. It's something that I really love, and this is where the passion is. And so the ones close to me, they know what it is. And again, I'm going through a similar identity transition, but I'm embracing it. I'm super positive, and I'm going all in with all the positivism because I do see the opportunities. I see that how much intelligence there is in that market, and I do see that there's a fit that I can provide, because I feel very comfortable in there. So I'm looking forward for that. So yeah. So I mean, from 1st of July, I have a lot of time. So happy to do talks. Happy to sit down. Happy to explore new ideas. I've been discussing with many people here in Hong Kong or globally to exchange new ideas. So yeah, do let me know what you guys think, and yeah, please message me your thoughts about identity questioning by millennial artists, and yeah, we take it from there. Okay, guys, see you. Bye.